Welcome to 284 Media's Just for the Record. I am Jhaka Wooding, and today I am joined by independent candidate for District 2, Mr. Troy Christopher. We explore his bid for this general election after a quick commercial break. Stay tuned for more Just for the Record after these messages.
Rashford made it. Manchester United have come from behind to lead.
At home or on the go, watch CCT Live. Download our app and carry your favorite TV shows, news, or live sports anywhere you go. Visit cctbvi.com/live, select your package, and tune in.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. And Mr. Christopher, of course, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Ms. Wooding, for having me.
All right, so how about you set our pace for this interview? Walk me through your professional and academic career.
Well, I would say that my background is in IT. One of the things that I would say had changed my life was my mother bought me a computer from age 11. And at that time, this was a burgeoning time of the computer space. It was an era of DOS, and we had people like Microsoft, Bill Gates resigning from college and starting a company, and Steve Jobs creating Apple from their basement. And this was this new environment that was, going to take over the world. And so she felt that it was important that we had exposure from young. And it is within that environment that I started within the IT space, learning to program and learning to code. At the time, it was the Apple IIe computer and the Macintosh and the Commodore 64. And the games that we had at that time would come on the back of a magazine. You would have to code it in. And when it finished, you would actually see the game and play. And that made a big difference in my early childhood life. We had a number of computer classes at the time. Around the Virgin Islands, there were different computer programs. I did Saturday classes and really became embroiled in the computer space and what would be transitioning at the time. So I had the opportunity to grow with the computer space and understand it from ground up. We passed through what we call the internet age, where the internet started to be developed. But it was an important period at high school. We didn't have computers graded, but they were putting them in the high school to give the exposure. At the time, everyone was still on typewriters, and they saw the importance of the computer becoming a tool. And they had the computers at the school. At the time, even the teachers were not trained. They were about to be trained next semester. And I was able to come into the space and help set up those computers and even teach some of the teachers at the time how they would be used, because it wouldn't be until the next semester that they themselves would have had deep computer training. And so I have grown up within the industry like that. I myself have taught computer classes and stuff. So that's a big part of my IT and computer background. One of my first jobs and responsibilities was to computerize a company. We all know it's Romney and Associates. They're known to be the ship's agents. I had a chance to work with the late Honorable Cyril Romney. He's known as the father of the cruise industry. And my responsibility was to computerize their system. But apart from doing that work, one of the things that I was allowed to do and be engaged in was doing tours and learning the deeper parts of the industry. I would say he spent some time with me, taking me to meet the captain, explaining the industry, things that he himself was trying to achieve, understanding what guests are looking for, understanding what a cruise ship is looking for within the environment, and being able to learn from him in particular what this industry is about. I was doing tours before a short time as a Virgin Islander, being able to explain the history of the islands, and all these things started to make a big impact. I started to get good reviews on the tours that I was doing. And so I myself became, to be honest, in awe in terms of what the Virgin Islands had to offer, seeing tourists be fascinated over the waters. I myself, being considered to be a techie, but the glittering of the water in the clear blue sea and what the mountain range in the sand, and this whole culture that we have in the Virgin Islands. I mean, it does something to you. It's not something that you can get out there and go to all the islands and you will forget. It's just really captivating. I spent maybe about 10 years at Romney Associates and then created my own IT company. I had responsibility to work with small businesses and some other bigger businesses, creating networks and servers and server systems for their businesses to use and to grow. I've had the opportunity to work with a number of financial services companies. Sometimes we met with those persons who would have started those companies. Sometimes they came as just two individuals in a briefcase, and we would grow those companies up to 50, 60 employees. And you learn quite a bit in terms of what is demanded globally for these companies to work. You know, when Hong Kong needs to connect at a different time than your current time, I mean, the systems have to work. You have to have redundancy. You have to understand how to distribute data across the world and make sure it's reliable. And at any time of the day or night, those systems have to be up. And there's tremendous amount I've learned and have able to solve problems around those issues as well. I've taken that experience out into the community. Companies like Z-Rod Radio, helping them transition from tapes and records to becoming fully digital. And, you know, a number of companies around, ZBV as well, and a number of others. So it's a lot of that type of experience that I've had. I also have what I think is some profound experience that came from working at Triad Management Services. Not only helping them with their computer network, but being able to learn. The company provides business plans and business solutions, financial solutions. You know, sometimes if you want financing from the bank, you have to create a business plan and to be able to show the bank how those funds could be repaid. And it requires market study, market research, looking at the viability, whether your pricing is correct, and being able to present a solution so the banks could be confident that if loan monies are spent, they can be repaid. And so a lot of that type of experience as well I've had. With a combination of those things, I have served as president of business at the Hotel and Commerce Association. Not only that organization not only that has a lot to do with tourism, but also small businesses as well. I've chaired the BVI trade show many times, encouraging small businesses, BVI businesses, to get out there and, you know, get themselves on a bigger stage, trying to solve their own problems in terms of what they might be having, challenges they might be having. I have also served as the chairman of the Taxi and Livery Commission, which at the time have presented a number of challenges that we looked at. We were having issues at the time in the territory with taxi drivers pulling bags and rushing guests and, you know, competing for who would be in their buses and stuff. And we were able to, myself, Damien Possible was the chair, was the director at the time, sorry, I was the chairman. And we created a number of initiatives to train taxi drivers within the industry. We partnered with BVI Tourist Board, created some programs that would teach the industry itself, teach them some of the do's and don'ts, take some of the personal challenges that they were having, and really show them why this is a no-no, what are the changes that we need to make within the industry. And I think we were able to establish a good relationship. There is an established protocol now. Before you get a taxi license, there are a certain amount of training that you have to go through. And it's not that it's out of reach, it's something that happens locally, it happens at HLSCC. And I think those things have made a big difference within the space. Also, there's been a number of challenges where they felt that the tours that they would provide from the cruise ship dock, that they were being, you know, left out, and it was a second tier. And one of the initiatives that we had was to take them to the FCCA and some of the big trade shows where the tour operators and the cruise ship companies would present what the industry would be move into. There's C-Trade, there's FCCA, and being able to take individual taxi drivers so that they themselves can see for themselves how big this industry is and where it's going and how much people are competing for this environment, and let them themselves get a chance to improve their product and present their product directly to the cruise operators from an earlier time than when you arrive on the ground. I think they appreciated that. I think that we have been able to try to create a much better relationship and solve some of those problems. So it is that type of a exposure and thinking that I would say I bring to the table.
And how has your portfolio, after all you've done, led you to pursue politics?
Well, again, I think from my IT background, I have this problem-solving type orientation where you're able to look at systems and see why they work, why they fail, and bring those type of solution-oriented perspective to the political space. I think that's something that has been missing. Sometimes things that might be obvious to me might not be obvious to everyone else. It's just the way that I would look at things. Being able to meet people and listen to their concerns and realize that there is a solution to be had between the two individuals. This individual is looking for this and the other individual is looking for something else, and how can we improve communication and make these things happen. I think my family is politically oriented. I, from a young age, have been exposed to politics. My grandfather would have been someone who was a local constable and participated in the community, but it's often that TB let some would come to our house and discuss politics, and this is from a very young age. My uncle Alvin on my father's side was a long-serving politician, maybe called the original action man. But even my mother, Honorable Dolores Christopher, many people would know her from some of her initiatives, like the Christmas on Main Street, in which she partnered with a group of individuals to create the BBVI trade shows, the craft market. And so those are all initiatives, even in the 5th district where she represented and paved a lot of roads and solved a lot of issues there, even creating a community center where young kids can come. And these are some areas where I was pulled in to help. From my IT background, we created a computer lab with about 16 computers. And they're not government assisted. They weren't provided just by government like that. I had to go out and, based on my business relationship, ask for sponsorship to get computers and convince businesses that there was a worthy cause that they're donating these computers for. And so it's that type of effort and energy that I have been involved within community. Even the basketball court in Huntomsgut. I mean, I am an avid basketball player as well as chess. But some of the things that she wanted when she looked at the community and saw that the young people didn't have a facility that they could use, and there was just an empty rim that they were using at the time, bolted to a tree. And she wanted to do something different, and we talked about it and decided to. She had originally she just wanted to do a half court. I suggested let's do the entire whole court. So that they can have that ability to go from board to board across the court and understand the difference that would mean to them having a space for themselves. So I've been involved in many ways all through my life. I've enjoyed being in the background, but the situation we find ourselves in the country right now, there's a number of things that I think that I can lend a significant support in taking the country to a different space and taking us out of this current environment and changing some of the systems and the issues that we're having. And so, a group of persons came for me and said, Troy, you gotta come, you have too much experience to stay on the sidelines. And they're not taking no for an answer, and here I am.
So you did mention that there are, of course, pertinent issues facing the territory right now. Could you just expand on those a bit more? Stay tuned for more Just for the Record after these messages.
There goes my new car. Guess I'm back on my bike.
Your bike? CG offers new car replacement. Remember my monster truck days? Well, one night I attempted a 50-foot pogo double backflip. I landed it and went to karaoke. It wasn't until afterward that my car got hit by that fisherman. He gave me some great mahi-mahi though. Anyway, they paid fast and got me in a new car. Now call a cab. I want you to meet my alpaca guy.
New car replacement for the first year of ownership. CG Insurance. Good like that.
Today, I am doing coral treatments with Beyond the Reef. Today, we are doing shark research. So today, we are doing whale research with Beyond the Reef. And wherever I go, I take CCT with me because my life is unlimited.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. So you did mention that there are, of course, pertinent issues facing the territory right now. Could you just expand on those a bit more?
Well, I would say that people have been wondering why we're having so much challenges within the government system itself. There's so much areas in the district that I am vying to represent the 2nd district, from roads to no water to poor maintenance. Economic opportunities are also a big thing. The community center in Brose Bay and the one in King Garden Bay, they've been closed now for maybe close to 5 years. And I find that to be unacceptable. The clinic is also non-functional. And these challenges are some of the things that I would like to help with. I'm not someone who takes no for an answer. I've learned to be community-minded and community-oriented. And I can look at the government system and see how old it is, how bureaucratic it is. It might not be obvious to some that we've had this system now for maybe about 50 years, and it hasn't really been upgraded in a significant way. And I would say it like this. If the main government system is the entity that will distribute assistance, help, whatever it is throughout the community, I can look at it like a main server. And if you have an old main server that can't deliver, you have a system still with one PS with so much information coming in the ministries. We've now, we're not at a stage where our population is 10,000 anymore. The demands are, people want response. And if that network, that system is old and bureaucratic, no one can tell you if you do work for government, when you're going to be paid. People talk about that all the time. If you send projects into the system, when will they come out? And so if we don't pay attention to the system itself, the central system that's going to distribute to all districts, then we're going to have a major problem. And I think we're seeing some of the challenges of that. I think we took the view that let's give the elected officials funds so that they can respond more speedily to issues that they were having in the community. But without a proper system of accountability and transparency, that also creates an issue. And so we've been trying to get around this system for some time, because if you look at constitutionally, who is responsible for this network, this government system itself within the civil service, that falls under the governor and the deputy governor. And although we appreciate efforts that have been made, the country has grown so fast that this system can't keep up, or it hasn't been upgraded enough. It is not accountable to us. We can't hold anyone responsible if it doesn't work. And I think that we have to be able to make some changes, significant changes, so that the system can be ready for 2023, or take us through the next 50 to 100 years. It must work significantly better. If I look at the House of Assembly, it's a space where we can see who is fighting for us and who is making a different representation as it relates to our elected officials. But when we look at cabinet, where major decisions are made, it's still private. It's still, we can't see who is defending us or who is the one bringing a specific agenda, and how do we decide? We're just told that, cabinet decisions are private and it's a collective responsibility. And I think the transparency, this should be open. The public should see what is happening in cabinet. We should be able to choose who we're going to vote for based on the words that come out of their mouth, based on how they defend us within cabinet as well. There should be nothing hidden from the people. And if we're going to move forward in this democratic space, I think those words of transparency and accountability, they must be real things. And so these are the systemic problems that we have to address going forward. We need that upgrade. It's not good enough for me to hear politicians say that we need foreign investment or outside investment, new monies, which is true. But often it's followed by we have to create a special lane for foreign investors so that they can get past the bureaucracy of government. So it's almost like we know that the government system is bureaucratic, broken, but we're creating a special lane for foreign investors. But what about local investors? What about those investors that we've had in the territory for so long? We all have invested our entire lives, and trying to not deal with this systematic issue that we're having is leading us into a space where we're regressing. And if you are a new politician and you're not aware of this, and you don't have the experience to try to don't get caught too deeply within that bureaucracy. I mean, some of the initiatives that I talk about, they're designed for the community itself to drive those initiatives. I think we've lost a lot of that community spirit. We're relying on the system of government itself. I think there's a place for representatives to partner with the community more and make sure that we're not stuck. We're not mentally stuck. And there's a lot of that happening right now.
Now, you mentioned transparency, accountability, and of course, there's a greater focus on good governance in the Virgin Islands right now. Why should the people trust you to deliver in those areas?
Well, I think, as I've said, both my experience and the practical way that I've looked at things, I understand the community extensively. I've lived, in the Virgin Islands all my life. I've invested here. I've spent quite a bit of time helping businesses themselves to participate within the economy. But being able to look at those systemic changes that we need is more than lip service. I can point specifically to the areas where we're having problems and why we're having those problems, and be able to bring some kind of level of trust, analytical way of looking at the challenges that we have. I think that BVI businesses and BVI landers are just as capable as anyone else intellectually, if we practice, if we learn. You look at how much records we've been breaking now within the athletic space. If you invest in the track, if you invest in the young people, we can sit at any stage and be just as capable as anyone else in the world. The Virgin Islands itself presents a tremendously beautiful environment if we maintain it, if we care for it. The natural environment itself lends itself to visitors all year round. And there's tremendous opportunities that are being untapped, untouched. And those are the things that, apart from the transparency and the accountability, we have to develop and take advantage of.
So when going into politics, when observing politics throughout the BVI, throughout the Caribbean, and often throughout the world, there's a lot of people who would criticize politicians, saying that often they go into the field for personal benefit, often financial benefit. And given the context of certain things to come to light in the BVI recently, there are concerns. What do you say to those concerns?
Well, I think as a politician or anyone getting into politics, you have to be able to set aside your own personal, whether you want to call it gains or business for some period of time, and know that your commitment is to country at that time. Country first, country first, country first. And when I look at the issues that we are having in the 2nd District, where the community centers are closed, and we're having so many different issues, I mean, I see so much things that could be had if you had someone who really could lead and engage with the community. I mean, I see a community space where the community centers are teaching tools. You have older people teaching younger people, or even professional people teaching individuals who would like to do a career change. The things I'm talking about would be like solar installation, the new solar revolution that's taken place. Those things can be taught at the community center at all levels. So from young people who may not have a trade, who wants to be prepared for the future, maybe in a little bit like I was prepared for the future, but being able to prepare them for the future and have that exposure. It can be someone who's interested in a side hustle, or you're interested in changing careers, but it's a place where you can touch and see and learn. It can be as simple as learning how to use an irrigation system for farming and landscaping. How do you create this system of watering the plants and putting it on a timer? There's opportunities in the IT space. I myself are still very much a techie. And young people, we're all on social media, we're on YouTube. They would like a studio where they can film, a green screen where they can shoot specific programs or things that they can slide in. And those are things that I'm encouraging. We would like them to teach the culture, tell our story, tell their story, use their phones and shoot films and movies and push them out in small form, 5-minute films, 30-minute documentaries. Even movies, you have the technology in your hand. It's a smaller version of the computer. And, it provides so much opportunities for them, but they are often looking for maybe a high-performance computer that they can edit on, a studio maybe where they can do drama and poetry and practice. And my belief is that we have to create the space where innovation can happen, where their ideas can come forward, where this thing can grow. I look at the 2nd District, specifically in King Garden Bay. There hasn't been a music fest in maybe about 7 to 8 years, and the question is why. It's almost like we are waiting and waiting and waiting for, someone to come from overseas, a big name group or band to keep these festivals. And my view is that if you understand the tourism product that we already have the ingredients already. You have the water, you have the sand in your feet, we've got music, we've got food, we've got the full moon. So let the local musicians play. Let the local musicians play consistently. Give them a stage, give them the platform. It's the same thing like we talked about, providing a track, and then you have world-class athletes. And within the space, if you have the local musicians playing on the stage, it shouldn't just be one festival, something that's so big that it blocks up the whole district, but it can be something smaller, more impactful. All the bars and the people who've invested on the beach will have, people have built villas, and, we need to drive economic growth. And I think that conceptually, even as we invest in the tourism space, we have to take a more aggressive approach. When you go to the restaurants themselves, there should be at some point, either on the weekends or in the evening, maybe at 7, those activities where we can see the culture, the Anastani dancers, the mukujumbis, the things, people that tourists can dance with, and the music is playing. You know, in the past it would have been feeling hot and a Congo line, and it comes like we've lost a lot of that type of energy that makes, you know, this new young tourism space. You know, people want that type of energy in those spaces and to dance with the characters that we have in the parade and feel like they can post them all over the internet, and people are wondering, wow, well, where is that? And so those types of activities, you know, those are the things that I would like to see, among others.
Recently, well, in recent years, I should say, one of the major topics of discussion in the BVI has been the COI. Of course, the report has been released, and the process of implementing the recommendations is underway. In your view, as a citizen of the Virgin Islands and as a candidate vying for a space in the House of Assembly, do you believe that the findings of the COI were a fair representation of what has gone on in the Virgin Islands in recent years?
Stay tuned for more Just for the Record after these messages.
There are many ways to enjoy life, like so many ways to count on Popular.
Angie, how can I get my claims paid quick? Rent's due next week.
CG processes 99% of claims within 5 days. Remember when I was hang gliding with those goats? I caught a gust of wind and flew right into a moving car. Every appendage was in the cast, and they paid fast and fairly. That's what I get for trusting a man with a mustache and an eye patch. Now I gotta go. I'm meeting the guy who bedazzled my toes.
99% of claims are processed within 5 days. CG Insurance. Good like that.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us.
I think the CII was necessary. I think there's a number of the initiatives that were important, a number of the recommendations that were important. But I think that what has been missing is some of the things that I've talked about earlier, the systemic challenges and the system that we're using. To be able to understand that transparency is not just for wards, but it's also for the cabinet, where the governor would sit and the ministers would sit, and that we should be able to see inside the cabinet how decisions are being made. We shouldn't have to wonder what happens or who said what. We've had situations, even with how the COI was, I would say, carried out, where we took recommendations, we didn't have a second opinion. So we weren't able to get as extensive a solution that I think that this is important. I think some of the challenges that we have continue to remain there, and we just pointing in a couple of areas, but there's so much more that needs to be done to give Virgin Islanders confidence within the system. I think term limits is something that we should embrace. I think a recall mechanism is something that we should also embrace. If people feel that politicians are not doing their job, there's some mechanism where they can be recalled. I think that Virgin Islands land should be termed that way, Virgin Islands land, and not Crown land. I think that as Virgin Islands, we have to continue to develop this space. And so the COI must motivate us to do better, but also to realize that the systems that are not working for us, that might be old systems, that we have to change them. We're the ones who have to be motivated to change them. There's no entity that's going to improve our lives for us. We have to take that responsibility on ourselves and shape the direction in which the Virgin Islands is heading. The jurisdiction that we are known as the territory of the Virgin Islands. This is recognized as an international space. We have our own parliament, we have our own legislation that we pass, and we have the ability to do something that many people in the UK or the US don't have. We have our territorial waters, we have our economic zone, all the fish and lobster and conchs and gold or oil or lithium or copper that is found within this environment. As Virgin Islands, we have the right to develop this space. And I think we have to take it seriously and really understand the possibilities that our ancestors saw when they fought for this space for us, and really embrace the future, seeing where we can go. I think those things to me are just as important as the COI that reveals, flaws that we might have. There are so much that we have given to the world. After the hurricane, we've seen so much help that have come from all over the world. The Virgin Islands have been good to a lot of people, and the experiences that they have here, or they've had within the Virgin Islands, those are things I think we could be proud of. We need to remember those things, the things that we have done well, and try to move ourselves into a new direction and be positive and energetic about going to that new space and not be too gloomy about what has transpired. It is something that we have to recognize, but we have to know that we are better than that, and we can improve, and we can get to that new space and create a much better environment.
As we move on to our next question, I do note that this is something you have spoken passionately on in the past. So please share with us your views on the Virgin Islands Constitution and the threat of it being suspended.
Well, I would say that, as I talked about before, the rights of the people of the Virgin Islands, and I use the word rights because there's a difference between rights and authority. These rights that we have to the Virgin Islands and its land have been recognized internationally by the United Nations. And we have what you call a constitutional relationship now with the United Kingdom. I say one set of freed people to another set of freed people. And we have a constitutional relationship that maybe was formed maybe in the 60s that says these are the things that we will manage ourselves, and we have entrusted the more international affairs things that has to do with security to the United Kingdom. And as we grow, we continue to take those responsibilities for ourselves and grow into a full measure of self-determination, which is our right under the United Nations Charter. So as it relates to suspension of our constitution, or as it relates to the term that was used, imposing direct rule, these are things that are not only alarming to me, they have been alarming to the international community, who, when they heard what was being suggested, spoke out. Everyone around the Caribbean, around the world, even in the U.S. Virgin Islands, said, this imposition of direct rule, this is a colonial relic of the past. No one supports that. And so we looked at what was being threatened, and I myself have responded by saying, let me come forward and lend my assistance. It's going to take a lot of educating and conversations with the people to bring back the confidence that we need in our abilities. But I think it can be done. And I think most people are starting to recognize that we all have a responsibility to manage the affairs of the Virgin Islands. If you want this democratic system that we talk about in our constitution, I think we are going to have to do a lot of that heavy lifting. The United Kingdom themselves, they are a monarchy. I am not sure that they can take us to that free democratic space that we're talking about. And we have to engage from that level and look at the things that we want and say that this is the type of system that we want. in the Virgin Islands, if we're going to really embrace the right that we have and not just the authority that we have extended to the United Kingdom for the time being. It's important to understand that the right is ours and it cannot be separated from us. But we have to be responsible enough to understand what responsibilities come with that right and how to direct authority so that it works for the best interest of all the persons living in the Virgin Islands.
Thank you for your response to that question. Now we turn to some topics that are likely to remain at the forefront of discussions following the general election. Of course, these are things that would have caused a buzz in the community and topics that are very contentious to debate in the Virgin Islands context. What are your views on same-sex marriage?
Same-sex marriage. Well, I'll look at the concept of marriage on the whole, or people living together. When people decide to live together, whether they're same-sex or not, there are certain natural expectations that that develop. You know, if you become sick, if you're my partner and you become sick, I would like to take you to the hospital. There's certain authority that I would like to be recognized if I bring you to the hospital or decisions has to be made. I think that as a community, we have recognized this type of relationship in the past. Even if persons are not married, there is something called a common law marriage. It is expected that, or it's accepted by the courts that when people spend a certain amount of time with each other, there are certain things that they mutually share. And so I embrace this concept. I think we've understood it. I said whether it's between two sexes or not, this is a relationship. The term marriage, though, is something that I have known to be between a man and a woman. So although I share the understanding of when people have relationships together, that there are certain, as I said, things that are expected, the authorities that they should share and the abilities that they have in the community. I think the concept of a marriage, we have known that to be between a man and a woman. Ultimately, I think this is a decision for the Virgin Islands people, what they want, what they want the word marriage to mean within their community. And so I can tell you, how I see it personally. But once you get in the political space, that's a decision for the public itself.
Are you in favor of raising minimum wage?
If I'm in favor of raising minimum wage, yes, we can raise minimum wage. To which figure or which point? Those things have to be done by analysis, what the number is. Because often within the business environment, there are opportunities for people to learn and grow. And some type of knowledge transfer is not really about money, it's about developing skills. I mean, you can go to university and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to learn a skill or be trained in a specific area. Or you can be part of an organization that will compensate you as well as still learning that skill or learning that trade. If you make it prohibitive for organizations to teach and for you to learn because the minimum wage is so high that nobody is interested in paying you to learn a skill. So it depends on the industry, it depends on the environment. I think that people should be able to survive, have a good cost of living adjustment if they're employed. It doesn't benefit anyone that they're working and they still can't live and can't survive. So we have to look at those numbers, make adjustments. But I wouldn't raise the minimum wage to a point where it prohibits knowledge transfer. And at the end of the day, these individuals have a right to decide what their relationship is going to be. And they can either change jobs or look for new opportunities, and you can decide whether I'm working here because I want to learn something, even if the pay is not, the highest thing in the world. But I'm learning something at the same time, versus, I've already developed the skill and I need to be fairly compensated. I think those negotiations still need to happen between the individuals who are employing and who's being employed.
And finally, in this segment of our interview, in favor of the Virgin Islands proceeding with seeking independence in the short term?
Let me say it this way. Independence is a form of government, and it's really a tool. You have countries that have gone independent and that have done really well, countries who've gone independent and have done poorly. It's important for us to understand how to do really well. The Virgin Islands have done really well for itself, and being able to maintain doing well is something that we just talked about, how the systems that we have, whether they're transparent, whether they're accountable, whether we are efficient, whether we can understand them, whether the community is engaged. If and when we go independent, this is the most important thing that we have to learn, how to maintain good principles and practices that makes independence worthwhile, and not be terrified that independence is going to mean that we fall under dictatorship and people will be oppressed. I think that the systems that we implement and how the confidence that we can give to the general public that independence is beneficial for us, and those things are very important. Independence also brings up another issue. As we look at the global challenges that we see in the global headwinds, we have been able to establish a significant amount of international relationships with the UK, relationships with Asia, relationships with China, relationships with Canada, and all the different countries that we have relationships with. If there is a global brouhaha, as they would say, do we have the ability to remain take an independent position, or because of our affiliation with the United Kingdom, are we going to have to take their position that they take? If they take the position of war, does that mean that we have to take the position of war? I think that's a decision for the people of the Virgin Islands, and we should have a say in that. And now independent countries have the ability to choose. They can decide, maybe like a Switzerland, that they're going to be on the sidelines and they're there for peace. And we should have that ability as well. We should have the ability to say, let's preserve these relationships that we have internationally, and we won't be caught up in any war. After the Ukraine situation, I noticed that there is a position where the governor said that he is a sanctioning authority in the Virgin Islands. I'm not sure if this happens with Asia, if it happens with China, the aggression that they're showing in that space, that has the ability to really damage our financial services industry. And so we should be in a position that we can sit with the industry and we can sit with Virgin Islanders and decide for ourselves, what position we are going to take. And so it is from that perspective that I, share the view that independence is a good tool. We have to learn to use it and make sure that we give the confidence that it will be used well to Virgin Islanders. How soon it will arrive, I can't say. It depends on the issues that we are dealing with, how good the next government can give confidence to the people in the Virgin Islands, how much the people of the Virgin Islands pay attention to the affairs that are happening in the territory.
Stay tuned for more Just for the Record after these messages.
Rashford made it. Manchester United have come from behind to lead.
At home or on the go, watch CCT Live. Download our app and carry your favorite TV shows, news, or live sports anywhere you go. Visit cctbvi.com/live, select your package, and tune in.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us.
Thank you for your responses there. Of course, we're approaching the end of our interview, but we cannot close off without just asking you, why do you believe that your representation is what the Virgin Islands needs right now?
Well, I say that the analytical way that I look at things, trying to solve problems and not just waiting on government, being able to have continued representation in the community, having open lines of communication in the community, making sure that you can be found, or there's a way that people can talk to you, because they're having tremendous amount of challenges within the district that I'm vying to represent. There's so much challenges from Jos Van Dyke to King Garden to Bros to Shannon to out at Harrigan's estate. There's a road over there that's been closed off for so long. It's a dead end. It makes a challenge if anybody has an emergency or being rescued. There's people talking about water. The roads are terrible. We continue to have the issues, as I said, about the community center and what can be done with them. I've talked about some before, but there's many more things. Apart from planting food around the community centers, and this can be a teaching tool. I've had a concept of a farm gym for a long time, where we exercise by helping to either dig holes or transport soil or put in the energy that we have into the ground that shows people how food is growing. I mean, this is after COVID now, so we know how important our immune system is and how important it is to have organic, healthy food. The community center should all have a greenhouse or nursery attached, where if you're in a community and you're looking for slips of bananas, or you're looking for papaya slips, or even the herbs that will help with high blood pressure, diabetes, this is something that you can find there. The older people know these things. They have been in the community centers in the past doing cultural activities. I think we can add some of the other activities that I talked about earlier, the IT stuff and the space where we can do film and drama and poetry. It can be almost like a mini museum if you want. One of the points that I continue to make is that if you look at the wall at Fire Hill, it's one of the most photographed spots, where they're pointing to a wall and they're looking at our history, and tour bus after tour bus after tour bus stops there. If in the community centers, the older people were able to set up some of those displays, where we would have the older tree rock fires and how they would bake bread in the pan, how they lived a long time, and tell the stories and share stories with tourists. This is a big economic opportunity, a way that the community centers themselves can generate revenue, because now this is a living museum where people who are coming to the Virgin Islands to understand your culture have people that they can talk to, the real people who lived it, and show how these things have been done. And we can show them to the young, we can show them to those who are interested. And the community centers I see as a tremendous opportunity that we are allowing to just remain wasted. Even within the district, maintenance of the environment, making sure the bush doesn't grow all over the road and it's continue to be maintained. These are things that residents talk about consistently. There's economic opportunity that is, right there in our hands that we're not seeing. If we look at the kind of tours that are available now, especially to younger persons, there's environmental tours that could be done, nature trails that could be done. It doesn't require them to have a big safari bus or make such a big investment, but the district has so much historical sites and presents so much opportunity. Being able to create an economic triangle, I think, from King Garden Bay, you can take a boat over to Jos Van Dyke, engage Jos Van Dyke with economic activity, whether you're at the Bubbly Pool or you're at the Foxy's End, or you want to hit Sandy Key. This can all be done within a day trip, and it ties the district together. Even if you take a boat out from King Garden and arrive at a different destination like Browse Bay. It's a different space. It's a lot more quiet and eco-friendly in terms of how they've expressed their view to have development. And there is if we walk together, which is a part of my campaign, how do we walk together as a community? I think we can grow, be more innovative, as we've talked about before. To put the Queen of the Band on the Welcome magazine and the picture with the feathers, that's not good enough. The question is, where can visitors find that when they come? And we should provide that in our environment. I have the concept of activating your 5 senses. How do you create a new product? You want to activate those 5 senses, see and touch and smell and taste. If you can activate those 5 senses within your concept of a tour or an experience, people will be transitioned into a different world. And that's really what they're looking for. They've come to the Virgin Islands. They don't necessarily want the exact same thing that they can see everywhere. They want to know what is original about you, what is authentic about you. And we have tremendous amount of culture that we can share that can add something to that space. Both sailing in the Virgin Islands as well as cruise ship passengers, as well as land-based tourists, they're interested in this, what makes the Virgin Islands this special place. So I think that my background in tourism, in the space of understanding what visitors are looking for, as well as my analytical view of systems and why they fail and why they work, I think will lend us significant help to where we are. I've gone through the Constitution and have had to study it now over the last 4 years, and it's proven to be valuable now. We are in the middle of a constitutional review. So this is the time when, if changes are going to be made to the Constitution, as we talked about before, then this is the time when we have to make them. And so it is from that perspective that I can help significantly take the Virgin Islands to a much, much better place. I see really good times ahead if we are able to do this.
Thank you so much for your response, Mr. Christopher. And of course, thank you again for being here today. I'm Jhaka Wooding, and this has been Just for the Record.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here. My name is Kamal Haynes. Most of you know me from 284 News, but now you get to see me in a different light on my very own show called Health is Wealth. We have Joel Turnbull.
I don't want you to arch your back when you're pulling down.
Milton McLean.
First of all, right, your footwork.
Stephen Payne.
That was a 9 out of 10. I know you got the service down pat.
Steve Augustine.
You did a pretty hard workout today, so perhaps...
And as you can see, it's actually...
you're feeling it.
Alonzo Boynes.
Taekwondo.
Adam Murrows.
I'll speak as if you're an absolute beginner.
I am an absolute beginner.
You are an absolute beginner.
And Seth Graham.
It bites. It will bite.
Get your water, get your fruits and veggies, and experience a wealth of knowledge about getting healthy.